Hi, this is StrategyCast, where smart marketers and bold business thinkers share the plays behind brand breakthroughs. I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avasec Communications. If you've ever felt the pressure to rush a rebrand or repositioning, this episode will make you rethink that instinct. Today, we're breaking down why the fastest route to market often leads to the biggest strategic mistakes and what to do instead. You'll learn how to uncover the customer insights that make your message stick, how to align your teams before a launch, and how to turn research into results that actually moves the brand forward. Joining me today is Kathryn Vargas, a marketing leader who's helped brands like Outsteer, Count, and Rubio's Fresh Mexican Grill reposition successfully by slowing down at the right moments to speed up later. Kathryn's here to share her framework on how smart marketers can do the same.
A competitive edge starts with strategy, and strategy starts with knowing how to develop one. StrategyCast is a leading marketing podcast that serves up strategic insights, trends, and tips to help separate your business from the pack. Tune in weekly as host Lori Jones interviews bold marketing leaders who have priceless wisdom and are willing to share. Each episode explores cutting-edge approaches that have proven instrumental in transforming brands into industry trailblazers.
Welcome to the show, Kathryn.
Yes, thanks so much for having me.
This is such a juicy topic. I absolutely love it. Before we dive into it, tell us a little bit about your background and what really led you to honing in on such a unique area of integrated marketing.
Yeah, so I think my collective experience really led to that. I actually started as an engineer, and what really was critical there was, my curiosity, my love for research, and it gave me a really, really great foundation. I ended up going to get my MBA because I realized in my first job that I just loved strategy and everything that goes into that. So I did that, and actually, while I'm in B2B marketing now, I started in B2C. But what that really taught me was that customer research and customer insight is so important. And I didn't end up staying in B2C, even though it was a lot of fun. I just love the innovation that's in B2B. But I made the switch and found out about product marketing, which is what I'm in now. And that is really where storytelling, positioning, messaging is in. And since I went to that 11 years ago, I really haven't looked back. And since then, I've done a lot of fun things working in fintech, payments and banking and cybersecurity. And as you can imagine, those are some tough stories to tell and really want to make it easy to understand and understand where your customers are coming from.
I think the background, and we've interviewed almost 600 CMOs on this show, and the background of consumer, at least to begin with, I think makes B2B marketers smarter. I really do. First of all, the approach that we take in a retail or a CPG environment with consumer and customer insights, I think really does establish that in a big way. But also it helps us, we've got to be so unique from a behavioral standpoint with those audiences. And I think that's where a lot of B2B marketing falls flat. So the learning of how to do that, I think really sets B2B marketers up to succeed in a very, very big way.
Yeah, it's surprisingly not done at all companies. And it amazes me how, even the frameworks for gathering insights really just aren't even put into place at some places.
Yeah. Yeah, it always really is interesting to me when a marketing lead will come in. And yes, we need to talk to our internal audiences, no doubt about it, but only to rely on them and their interaction with external, I think is a big mistake. The first thing we do is VOC, or customer insights discussion, that we feel helps lead really where the research needs to go.
For sure.
Okay, so let's roll up our sleeves here and dive into really setting the stage before we talk about some frameworks here. And let's discuss what repositioning really means. There are, I think, a lot of misnomers out there about repositioning versus rebranding, and we're going to talk today about why these are not interchangeable. So let's start with some definitions. How do you define brand repositioning, and how is it different from a rebrand?
Yeah, for sure. So repositioning is really about the words and the message and exactly what you say and how customers think about you. Whereas a rebranding is really that visual aspect and all, the colors, and the two don't have to be, but can be done at the same time. But you can keep your brand intact while doing a repositioning and remessaging. And a key point is that you want to do it before you do all your collateral because it just really will set you up for success.
One thing I heard, this goes back decades, okay? This is not new, but to me, it always really helps people understand the difference. And you brand for share of heart and you
Mhm.
position for share of market. And
I
that
love
to
that.
me, yeah, and that to me is really where, I mean, it really helps, just really understand what the parallel paths are that we need to travel down. The other thing that I think is very important here is really how to understand if a reposition is needed versus a rebrand. I think the comfort set is for most marketers to want to rebrand because it's easier. But the rebrand is never going to work. I mean, they're comfortable with a look and a feel, but it's never going to work if the position isn't correct. And I
Mhm.
would go as far as to say that most marketing fails because the position is not correct. What do you say about that?
Yes, I definitely agree. You can change the colors and the look and the feel, and that's helpful. But if what you're saying isn't differentiated, if you're not speaking to the customer's pain points and solving a problem, they're just going to do nothing or go with your competitors. And the words you say and how you position really make a big impact.
What do you think are the most common triggers to determine if a reposition is needed? Or a position, by the way. Dare I say a lot of brands are in market right now and they're just throwing all things to all people. They don't have a position. So, they might just need to start.
Right. Yeah. That's one aspect is figuring out who you're selling to and not selling to everybody all at once. But in my cases, everybody has had already a position, whether that's like a product forward position or just a position that they've been going with that has worked. So it's really been like a change in strategy that has triggered that, where it's often, increasing TAM, the total addressable market, and in doing a product launch, or the fact that your win rate's been declining or is really low. So that really signals a problem. And usually have worked with the executive team and have been able to notice that we need a reposition. And that's really just kicked everything off as a change in strategy.
And you did exactly this for the brands, Rubio's Outsteer account. Can you share the signals that you experienced with those brands that really led you down the path of, okay, we need to reposition?
Yeah, I'll give one example at Count, which was a fraud prevention company. We had, as a company, decided that we wanted to go to IPO or get acquired. So we knew that just in our feeling that we had a pretty good brand, but we wanted to increase our value by increasing the total addressable market. And so we kicked that off with some surveys and kind of internal fact finding and knowledge, and determined that to really like win in the market, we would have to be stronger in what we're saying and kind of marry the new position with what we wanted to do in expanding our product line and really put a stake in the ground of saying we want to be number one. And we'll do that with product, but we also have to do that in terms of how we communicate to the market.
Yeah, I tell you, it's so interesting to be able to sit back and say, okay, this is not a visual issue. It is truly which part of the market we can own and be successful in. And simply put, I mean, that's what people need to be thinking about. And that's why this framework we're going to talk about in a minute is so incredibly important. Before we get there, I want to talk about the speed trap. It's managing expectations across the board. We're just completing a 5-month reposition for a brand. And along the way, we really needed to, which is quite frankly very quick because it entailed all of the research that we're going to talk about in just a minute. But it really is helping to communicate an understanding with a commercial team, with a board, with a C-suite on why the time is needed and why it is so important that we absolutely start here. You've said that the pressure to move fast kills insight. Why is it such a common trap in marketing? Why do most people fall into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a couple different reasons. I think that the most common is that they really just want to launch a product quickly, and they think they know everything. So they want to gain first mover advantage or quickly move the needle, and that just is a really big trap in terms of shutting out the market research needed, just thinking you know everything. That's also like with the assumption of thinking that we know our customers, for example, because sales talks to them or, the CEO talks to our customers. We all therefore know all about our customers, but it's one thing to talk to your customers and it's another thing to understand where they're coming from. And I think those are two really different conversations. And getting the hearsay from the sales team is really not the same as talking to them yourself. And one thing you had mentioned earlier was more in like the product focused companies, maybe, a startup or something where it's really product forward. You can sell your product narrative, and especially in this day and age of AI, you can sell, we have AI this or AI that, but it's only going to get you so far until customers are saying, well, what is it going to solve for me? What's in it for me? So.
I love that. Can you share an example in market of where a company just went too fast and the reposition failed?
Yeah, so one of them was with Backbase, which is a banking platform, and they noticed, I guess, a failure before I came on, and it was one of the reasons for my hire. So they're a European company, and we're looking to and had gone into the U.S. market because of the growth potential there. However, although they had won some customers and they were getting some accounts, it was really getting stagnant, and they had noticed the win rate had really gone down, and they didn't know what was going on. So I came on there and really went in, and my main focus in the beginning was to research the market and test assumptions and uncover answers. So it was really their initial, speed to market and not understanding the differences and thinking that they knew everything just because they had been successful elsewhere, that this would also be a success. So,
Another campaign that we have all, probably everyone listening to the show today has heard of is the New Coke campaign, not Coke Zero. A lot of people confuse it with that, but it was the New Coke campaign where product development bypassed all consumer insights. They went to market with a new flavor without any type of testing, and it failed miserably. Nobody liked the product. The sales decline was massive, and they basically had to eat crow and go back to the original formula and then spend several years testing the waters on when it would be a good time to introduce a new product, which Coke Zero ultimately came out of that because of that massive misstep.
I remember that. Such a good lesson.
I know. So what advice do you have for our listeners today when there is a dictate on a fast turnaround? What kind of conversation should they be having with the internal teams to let them know and really reinstill why the need for speed has got to be slowed down?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard conversation if it's not already recognized. But, really, if you don't slow down and do that research, it's really going to affect the bottom line, or it can. So I think that just communicating that, getting everybody on board that there does need to be some research and insights, and whether you can get that quickly or you need to take a little bit more time is, kind of dependent on the situation.
Well, that is a great segue into our next part of the interview here, which is really unpacking your framework and really distilling why this very practical, repeatable approach for insights-driven repositioning is so very, very important. What's the first thing that marketers should assess when beginning to consider a reposition?
Yeah, I think the first thing that I've always done is take a look at the brand health. How are you positioned and how are you liked in terms of, customers, and how do they look at you? How's your brand awareness out in the market? How much do customers really love you or want to, buy your product? And, how is that customer sentiment? How are you positioned? So that's the first thing that I would do would be to take a pulse check if you don't already do that.
And, I think a lot of people fall into the trap of brand health with taking a look at very, very mid-funnel analytics and looking at that as brand health. What you're really talking about is awareness, is behaviors or thoughts about the brand, perception, so on and so forth. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for our listeners today who are going to fall into the trap of that middle funnel, MQL, SQL analytic? Brand health is very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is very different, and it can be done quickly to get a good pulse of where you are, but you really want to see, what is that sentiment? You can look at reviews, you can look at market share. It's not necessarily how your campaigns or how your marketing is performing. I mean, that would be a really like far back metric. So really getting the comparison of yourself and competitors in the marketplace is, what you really want to do.
That's some great advice there. What are some of the most effective ways that you can gather current customer insights?
Yeah, I think the customer insights is really the key piece to it all. And it's definitely going to be, you want to do like a mix of qualitative and quantitative assessments. So I think a lot of people start with the qualitative, getting the numbers and the facts, and that's the most important to them. But that's really not where you should stop. You also want to get the sentiment, and because getting the quotes and listening to customers and repeating back their what they say is often what has led me to those really big aha moments. And then that's what's really shapes the whole repositioning and remarketing, because you're understanding them. So I'll go a little bit deeper into that. For some like quantitative measures, you can look at retention numbers first off. You don't have to talk to customers, but what's your retention? What's your net promoter score if you're looking at that? If not, you should. What are your customer satisfaction scores or reviews? And you can do sentiments and analysis in that way. Then you also want to start off with your customer research by looking at, market stats and trends. And I like doing that because often knowing what's going on in the marketplace kind of shifts or formulates, my hypothesis of what I should go after, see where we might want to dig down deeper, where there might be some holes. So getting that kind of frames everything. And then you will also want to look for customers in your interviews and everything, target customer needs. What are their needs that they're looking to get filled? Why would they buy your product? And then competitive positioning is always great too, not just, looking at what competitors are doing and saying, but then actually asking customers, about competitors' positioning, why they talk to them, who they talk to, and all that.
We love a great competitive analysis, and I think advice that we have for listeners regarding competitive analysis is they typically lean toward the brand side of a competitive analysis, not the positioning side. We love to
Mhm.
re-engineer, reverse engineer what a brand's position in the market, and I think that provides such an incredible path for us to position something that truly is distinct, not just different,
Mhm.
but truly is distinct. And I think that's where a lot of brands, get it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely look to see what they're doing, but not really understand. And I think there's tools out there now where you can compare your positioning to your competitor's positioning. But that's one of the things that we did at Count was we took a look at all their web pages, how they were laid out, all the brand images and everything. But then we went further and looked at the headlines. What they were saying was their primary position, and that really helped us to differentiate what we wanted to say. And you can't be a differentiated positioned product if you don't look to see what others are saying about themselves. You're just going to end up as a me too.
Yeah, I totally agree. You and I talked about some AI tools very early on that you have used to gain some of these insights. What are those?
Yeah, and I think that there's obviously a ton of tools out there. One of the easiest to start using is like a Gong AI or a Chorus AI, and really just do some passive listening with sales calls, looking to see, what are buyers asking, what are their pain points and objections. And you don't even have to listen to the whole call. You can listen to parts of it, and then you can start tracking and really get to some insights faster. And then another one that really saves a whole lot of time. It's not necessarily like a cool AI tool, but just, voice recording and summarization for customer interviews, win-loss interviews is so helpful, not just in summarizing one interview, but really in looking at trends across interviews. And it just is such a time saver. I would spend, 8 to 16 hours on a single win loss interview and summarization. And then, with AI, you can just really speed things up.
Yeah, and I think that there's always a great, from a qualitative standpoint, a great conversation to be had, especially if your market is smaller. Like,
Mhm.
let's take a look at OEM market, which is inherently just smaller for a lot of B2B marketers out there. And having those conversations, we did a voice of customer interview series over the summer and not just interviewed current customers, but past customers and customers who actually had fired the client. We
Oh,
gained
wow.
we gained so much, and we are so thrilled that they agreed to do the interviews. We gained so much insight from those discussions, and in fact, one of the clients that had fired this client of ours, the president of the company said, "You know what? I'm gonna pick up the phone and talk to them." They had a meeting, and they got a PO, 3 months later because the conversation was so darn important, and the fact that a third party was taking the time, that the
Mhm.
company had hired a third party to have these conversations, really instilled a lot of trust again in the brand. So you never know where these are going to lead, is what I'm leaning into there. So we've just had a great conversation, kind of intertwined a little bit between qualitative and quantitative, but I want to dive into quantitative a little bit more. Why is this so important, and what do you look for there?
Yeah, with the quantitative, it's all about, brand sentiment and getting customers' insights and all of that. So I one of the things I just really like to do is I have, of course, my talk track and survey set out ahead of time and what I'm actually looking to get out of the conversation based on what I know of, the customer prospect, my hypothesis, but I just let them talk. And one of the things that has been so helpful is just listening and hearing what they have to say. Eventually, with enough probing, they tell you what's wrong or what they're looking for, their big pain points. And a lot of times, people just want to be heard. And what you had said earlier really, struck a chord with me. of, the interviews and win-loss and listening. And it's amazing how many people think, how many executives, CEOs, heads of sales think that it's not important and that it'll be hard to talk, but people just really want to tell you their thoughts, and you can get so much out of it.
I think it's such a great way to test the hypotheses that you get through the qualitative side as well. And that to me is, unaided, those great questions that really provide that insight, that answer back, that are like the holy grail of, a path that you can travel down. Again, I think the mix of both of those are and so important. So we've got all of these insights, and what do you do with them next?
Yeah. So next, you'll want to use that to validate your business strategy, put your plan in action, make some changes, and really, put your insights into a strategic plan.
And do you have a great outline for that strategic plan that is an atypical approach that you would deploy?
I don't have a outline per se, but just writing down what you want to get out of the repositioning because it's so different for each company, and then what your KPIs are. I think, well, it's not like a structure, I guess. It would be more of what you're looking to get out of it, and not assuming that what you think and what you know is what everybody else thinks and knows. So, writing down and discussing exactly what you plan to do with it. Are you going to then do messaging and positioning? What happens with that? How much collateral are you going to create? Are you going to tie it into a product launch? Is it going to be a full-fledged go-to-market that you need buy-in on and a lot of alignment? So I think I've fell into the trap of, not writing things down and assuming people are on the same page with me. And it's just really important to get everyone aligned.
Yeah, I think so too. We deploy that through a North Star. So what
Mhm.
all of these insights, there's so much of it and so many very good, numbers and percentages and ideas and thoughts, that if you can deduce that all down to a North Star that becomes that vision for the repositioning statement, the tagline, the message pillars, the key audience profiles, the segmentation research and where that led, what are the key points, what's the soft underbelly, what do we really want to hang our hat on, what can we own, what don't we do well, all those sort of things we feel really leads to that great positioning strategy. And it goes a long way to ultimately helping the team understand why we're moving that way in a very systematic approach. So let's stay on that point for a minute. How do you create organizational alignment on a new direction?
Yeah, I think that in all of the cases that I've had, um, we weren't necessarily looking to reposition in every case, but getting those qualitative and quantitative insights and really showing that we needed to move in a different direction kind of gave everybody internally that big aha moment, and just rallying around the point that something needs to change or it's going to cause real business bottom line decline, is something that usually people can, get aligned with. So,
So let's talk about Rubio's. We haven't spent much time talking about that very, iconic brand. How did you get everyone there aligned? I mean, that's difficult because it's not just, a home office and sales offices. In that example, that was your consumer experience, and you had many locations across the United States.
yeah, so that was a company that was really all in on consumer insights and testing, and it was a great learning experience. And once we had done all of our brand health and our surveys, put together the strategy, we, put together the plan for what we were going to do. and then started testing. So we were able to get alignment by getting all of the data and showing that it was, one way or the other. For example, started a test kitchen. And I'll backtrack a little bit. So with Rubio's, it was all about tacos and original fish taco. And we had wanted to expand without opening new restaurants. So the way we decided to do that was introduce new tacos, new flavors. We had a 2 to 3 year strategic plan put in place, which you wouldn't think of from a fast casual restaurant necessarily. Um, but did all the testing, proved it, and really showed that the data said, this is working, this is not, this needs a tweak, this doesn't. And people were all in on, the insights and the results and wanted to know more.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions marketers have about repositioning?
I think it's less of marketers having a misconception as opposed to the perception of marketers' success, perhaps from the company, of people just assume that um, campaigns fail because of marketing, but it's really a failure of, strategic messaging and creating alignment and really just not getting to that differentiated message. So I think, you fall into trap of believing that you don't need to put the legwork in. And if you don't, it's often going to, fail.
Yeah. I think that alignment is such a key point here because if there is misalignment, and we see that 9 out of 10 times, and it's just because not everyone knows everything yet, right?
Mhm.
That can really make or break the program. Years and years and years ago, we were working with a very, very large national retail tire chain rather, and we were launching a big, very, very big promotion. Basically, we were the home of buy two tires, get two free. And
Mhm.
there were so many nuances involved in every point of sale that needed to take place in order for someone to be able to redeem the promotion, that there was a lot of education that was needed. So we actually, and it was a very, very short 5-day window that the promotion ran. So we didn't have time to kind of figure things out along the way. And we had kickoff events in each market where every store brought all their team members together for an evening where we literally methodically walked through everything. And then the following day, the store managers walked through everything with everyone at every shift. And then on the third day, everything launched. So the timing was very interesting
Mhm.
because we didn't give people time to forget about everything. We gave them time, like that quick insight needed and that quick follow through. And then boom, day 3, it was launched. And I think that is needed in these situations. I think that, to get everyone excited and
Mhm.
really understand where the brand is going and understanding the key messages and what's a 30-word elevator speech versus a 70-word elevator speech that everyone can memorize and get
Mhm.
down so that that just is building the brand equity even more because you've got that continuity and message.
Mhm. Yeah, I didn't touch on it earlier, but getting everybody on the same page through sales training and really making it simple to understand, like you said, what that key message is, and then backing it up with all the proof points is super important.
Yeah, I love it. 2 more questions for you before we have to say goodbye today. What's one small step listeners can take this week to start building their own insight framework?
Yeah, I think that if you don't have something in place, I definitely would set things up to start monitoring and collecting data and insights. And if you have something, I would just set up even more because the more insights that you have ahead of time, the faster you'll be able to go once you actually need them.
Kathryn, that was great. As we wrap up here, I want to give you the space to leave our listeners with the core idea you hope stays with them long after this episode. When you think about all the brands, all the incredible brands that you have worked with and guided through repositioning, what's the one principle you wish every marketing team understood sooner?
Yeah, so definitely would say that getting the insights from customers is really important, and listening and hearing what they have to say really will help shape your differentiation strategy and help you win in the market.
It's all about customer insights. I think that is the major theme here, no matter what. Thank you, Kathryn. You've been incredible today. What is the best way for our audience to get in touch with you?
Yep, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kathryn Vargas. So that's probably the best way.
And that's the best way to find me as well. It's Lori Sutorius Jones on LinkedIn. Kathryn Vargas, you've been an absolute pleasure today. Thank you for kicking off our 10th season of StrategyCast in January of 2026. We appreciate all your insights and the wisdom you have shared with us today.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on today's show. We hope your strategic brains are spinning with new ideas and bold inspiration that will elevate your strategies and marketing know-how.